Hi, I am Stephanie McKeith, and this is Cancer Coach Chat. Now, I have Jane Barlow Christensen with me, and since we're just joining now for Cancer Coach Chat, we're going to actually get into the power of herbal medicine, something that so many of you reach out to me all the time for, and this is going to be a hot topic for many of you, and we're going to have ways for you to connect deeper with Jane and learn a little bit more about what it is that she has to teach and what she has to share with you. So I always talk about the critical importance of being an individual in your approach to healing and to healthcare. And Jane has this belief also. However, she also shares this baseline that there's a certain something that we all just need. And of those things that we all need as humans, whether you're healing or taking a preventative approach or not, you need clean, pure water. You need the sun and the earth to be able to ground and connect with the earth. You need sleep and relaxation. You need to be eating clean, nutritious, organic foods. Your movement should be daily. It's not something that we just pick up a couple of weights 3 times a week. There's a certain something, there's a certain special something to that functional movement that you get on a daily basis. You need to embrace the power of love, forgiveness, and connection with your community. There's healing powers to that, as well as serving others. When you have that connection and you're able to distribute it to other people, you get a raised elevation in your frequency, which helps you to heal. Now, I'm so excited because Jane is an herbalist. She's a master herbalist, and she's going to share the power of herbal medicine. And I love that I get to introduce you in this way and to be able to touch and connect with somebody through their story is powerful. But Jane's is really interesting, and I feel like it would be much better for her to explain her story to you. And Jane, if you don't mind, my audience knows the connection of my dad and how I got into this industry because of my dad. So I think if we start with your dad maybe, and then kind of work our way to this point in time, that would be a great place to be at this point.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that about you two.
Yeah.
So I need to learn more about you too.
Yeah.
So I grew up really uniquely, which in a way it's a tiny bit sad that everyone doesn't get to grow up this way.
I agree.
Because I think we did used to have that a lot more. But so I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and my dad was a medicinal botanist. So his PhD, when he went to college, he got a PhD in making medicine out of plants. So this is just what made him completely geek out, was like, what plants do this for this problem, and what time of day do you collect them, and when are all the medicinal properties the highest, and what time of year, and how do you cure it and dry it or put it into a tincture or a poultice. So when I grew up, there were always things around the house in pots, and there were things in jars growing and tincturing, and it was just, that was really, really normal for me. But I knew it wasn't normal because when I was with my friends, I knew that my family was very hippie.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and it was, it wasn't that it was a bad childhood, and I wasn't embarrassed of the way I grew up, but it was very, very unique. And I'm second oldest of 14 kids. So my parents had a big family. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So there's 11 natural kids. And then my dad and mom adopted 3 Native American kids who were siblings, and they were really young. They were 2, 3, and 4 when we adopted them, and I was only 4. So they grew up with us, and my dad had a real love for Native American plants in particular. So that was really what he loved. He was just this researcher, this scientist. We had people come into the house that were giving us chiropractic adjustments when we were little kids. We were getting iridology and reflexology and energy work. And, it was really cool, like, especially think about where things are full circle now. It feels like right now people are going, oh my goodness, we are such holistic beings that it's like the little list that you gave at the beginning of this. It's like we need clean water, we need good sleep, we need nutritious food, we need to ground with the earth, we need
Yeah.
sunshine, we need love, we need human connection and purpose.
Yeah.
Like we're starting to realize in a really deep collective level, from what I've seen, especially these last 2 years,
That's right.
people are realizing that this is how it always has been, and we've lost our way, but we're starting to go, oh, I see this, and I'm the one responsible, not my doctor, I mean, there are things that your doctor can do for you, but ultimately I'm responsible. And what I've found, I've got 2 kids, they're 40 and 41 now, and I've got some grandkids. And so as I get older and I watch all this happen, and I watch people in my age category suffer with all of these health conditions,
Yep.
it's just like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it makes me so eternally grateful that I get to do what I do. So, my dad worked with a lot of really amazing pioneers in herbal medicine. And as kids, we got to take turns tagging along and going to, to see different people. We didn't put a lot of weight on it when we were growing up because we didn't
Sure.
really realize, or care.
Because it was normal for you guys.
Yeah. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. My dad passed away 24 years ago, and 4 years after he passed away, I restarted his company. So he formulated a lot of really unique herbal formulations.
Yeah.
That had to do too with a lot of the people that he worked with, and just his deep love and knowledge of what makes plant medicine tick. And I know he was a medicine man and a shaman in other lives, because here's this Caucasian guy that so deeply loved plant medicine, and it made sense to him.
So did he make a living off of it, or was this this was a side thing for him, or this was it?
This was it. The last probably 25 years of his life, this was it. But he passed away very young. He was only 62, and I'm a year away from that.
So was my dad.
Really?
Yes.
So what did your dad pass away from?
So my dad actually had a cancer diagnosis, and that was the beginning. That's what tipped me into this whole new world. He got the cancer diagnosis, and they said chemo, radiation, and maybe surgery. You're not really a candidate for it, but we'll entertain that if you want us to. And he said, what are my options? And they said, you don't have any. And I said, that's unacceptable. I cannot take that. Sorry, Dad, we're going to keep looking for something else. But he came of that generation where you don't question the doctor, you do as you're told, you take the medicine, you fight real hard, and you go to battle, you go to war. And they had all those negative, harsh vibrations with these words that they just threw him into this clump of statistical type people. And I learned along the way. I reached out. This was over a decade ago. It was 12 years ago. So social media wasn't as big as it is now. There wasn't groups to just connect with anywhere at any time. So I was researching day and night. I was in school to become a physical therapist, and I would take my research to my professors and say, look at this, this, and this, as compared to my dad's lab reports. Why would they be doing this? What about herbs? What about nutrition? What about the gut biome? What about his emotional state of being? What are we doing for that? How are we detoxing him? And they said, stop it. If there was something else to do for your dad, the doctors would do it. They would figure it out. You're not going to figure that out. So fast forward, he did everything they told him to do, but he also did everything that I discovered along the way. So he did really good through his treatment until 4 years into it, he developed therapy-related leukemia. They gave him more chemotherapy, they drowned his lungs, and he died of respiratory distress syndrome. So it was, he wasn't ready. He was still looking for more. We were exploring natural medicine, herbs, and cannabis. Really, he really wanted to find out what could cannabis do for him. I had been on that bandwagon of that's bad. That's a gateway drug. That's dad. You just want to get stoned. And he says, no, it helps people get rid of their cancer. Look into that. So that became my field of study. That became my specialty. So with that, cannabis is an herb. So I am always looking into herbal medicine, but people I've noticed are scared and they don't know how to use it. And doctors, if you're looking to integrate yourself, if you're not with an integrative doctor in oncology and private practice, and you go to a more conventional type setting and they claim to be integrative and you start bringing up herbs, it's almost like you get the big no-no because they certainly don't understand it. So it's a topic that comes up frequently. And it's something that now I know we've got a really similar with our dads going on there. So your dad had already formulations for you to bring back, right?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think he wanted to stick around. You know, my dad's situation, what I've come to believe, and just talking with a lot of my siblings, we've kind of all come to the same conclusion. Because my dad did practice what he preached on the biological level,
Sure.
but the piece that my dad was missing is that holistic piece. So my dad had a heart attack and he was gone in one day.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and I believe honestly that he died of a broken heart because he was such a generous, purpose-driven person that there were many people during the last probably 20 years of his life that took advantage of him on a really high level.
Oh, I'm sure.
And he just did not know how to say no to him, or holding people that saw that piece of him that was so generous and so giving. I think that piece of him, he didn't know how to set a barrier. And I do think that is important, especially for people who are called to be healers. There will be people who want you to take charge, and then they'll realize your big heart and they'll be like, I'm going to just put all of this on you and I'm going to suck everything out of you.
Yeah.
And those people are rare. Those are not, I really don't think that's
right.
The whole thing. But I do think that we, as my dad's children, have all realized how important that piece of the puzzle is. You have to take care of every holistic piece of you. And it's all critically important, not just because you can take care of everything on a biological level.
Yeah.
And then you have a serious amount of stress and you develop a horrible disease because your body is out of alkaline balance. Stress alone can cause you to have the disease.
That's right.
Or living in fear, these last couple of years. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about that. I mean, hello. Yeah. So, I feel like I've been given a true gift, and every day I get up out of bed and I'm just like, I can't wait to start my day because I'm so grateful that I get to do what I do. And I sometimes think if I can just inspire one person today, and I think that the tide is turning. There's a lot of work to be done, but people they're realizing so many beautiful truths. And I think if we can, my biggest thing is helping people have the confidence to trust herbal medicine, because it's so out of our radar for most people. Like I have full on trust. Like my kid or my grandkid gets an infection, I get an infection. COVID scared me this much. I'm like, whatever, okay. So I think that what happens is we don't know how to trust it. Now, if you have a broken bone or you are in a car accident, yes, you need to go take advantage of our modern medical technology that can save your life. Even in the case of an acute infection, you might need an antibiotic. Personally, I haven't had an antibiotic in decades, but I would if I needed it.
Yeah.
So I think that my biggest goal is to educate people and give people confidence in trusting herbal medicine, especially with something like cancer. That's scary.
It is scary.
If you can imagine, think about what would happen if, say, for example, your dad went in and got this diagnosis. And instead of the fear-based, this is the only options you have, and we hope we can help you survive it. Imagine what would happen if your doctor stood you up and wrapped you in a big hug and said, you know what? We got this. The human body is resilient and amazing. Let's change up what you're eating. Let's look at your stress levels. Let's get you moving every day. Like, imagine if that happened and they gave you the confidence to go, we're going to beat this, because you know what? That's what the human body does.
For sure.
It knows about wellness. It knows how to be well. And there's probably some things that you're doing or not doing that we can, I mean, that mindset alone puts you into the healing process immediately. So I believe that's a big piece of what needs to change, because that person in the white coat is authority. And when we hear something from someone that we perceive as an authority figure, it can give our immune system a boost, even just that.
It does. And we have so many places around the world that offer that you are embraced by your doctor. But where we need to see the shift is that needs to be the norm. That needs to be mainstream. That should not just be for somebody who is in the right situation to be able to go off to Mexico or to Jamaica or to Turkey. That should just be the way it is. So you mentioned you keep referring to herbal medicine. That's a hot topic there, because a lot of people, when they think medicine, they automatically, their mind goes to the pharmaceutical industry. So how do we call it herbal medicine? How do we call plants medicine? What is that?
Yeah, well, how is it not medicine? I mean, you think about if you eat a big salad that maybe was even grown in your garden, which is even better, all those fresh veggies that is literally, you're feeding your body medicine. They have antioxidants, they have anti-inflammatory properties, they have things that improve your digestion. There's things that have anti-cancer properties in fruits and veggies. So to say that that's not medicine, but we've come to equate medicine with a drug that's made by a pharmaceutical industry.
Sure.
And we've been brainwashed into believing that that is medicine. So if we were to swap our mindset and realize that, first of all, our food is medicine, that's a great place to start. But then this is where it goes beautifully deeper. Because if you think about every single indigenous people around the world, for centuries, since humans have been around, there's always been passed down generation to generation, medicine man. And there's deep knowledge and wisdom on this plant that's collected, like in Peru, there's a beautiful plant called cat's claw. It's the inner bark of a tree. It's harvested and made into different things, poultices or tinctures or whatever. And it has beautiful anti-cancer and anti-inflammatory properties. And it's completely natural, but the medicinal properties, this is not something you would eat as food. Now you could make it into a tea, but this would be something that is herbal medicine. You would take it, like I take cat's claw tincture if I feel a little bit of inflammation. And it works the same way, from my experience, as an anti-inflammatory drug would work. So to say that that's not medicine, we've just got it a little bit backward. We need to reframe our thinking a little bit.
We need to rework it, right? So you mentioned that your dad, whenever you were coming down with something, he would treat you with his herbal concoctions and tinctures, and then your children and your grandchildren too. So you grew up that way. I have to imagine that you raised your children, and your children understand how your grandchildren can apply this as well. So this is something that we can use on all ages. Herbal medicine is something we can use from birth until death.
Yeah, and there are some things that are not applicable for kids, and some things that should be used. Like if there's a woman who's pregnant, that's different. And if a woman is lactating, there are some herbs that she shouldn't use because it might disrupt the flow of milk. And it's pretty rare that there are herbs, especially ones that I use and I'm familiar with, that I wouldn't give to kids. If like for parasites or for candida or in simple infections. And that's what most of kids are basically healthy. And there are things that come at them that help build their immune system and is really, really important to build their immune system, like different cold and flu bugs and different getting in the dirt and all that stuff. That stuff's really super important. And even coming in contact with other people and the microbiome that we share just by hugging.
Yeah.
Like, those things are really important. But kids get things. And, you know, an ear infection, my grandson, who's almost 9, every year between when he was born and about 5, he would get ear infections.
Okay.
So we have this beautiful herb. It's a Native American herb called Lomatium. And it's, you just put a few drops of the tincture in his ear, give him a little bit internally. And in less than a day, sometimes a couple days, his ear infection's completely cleared up. But you have to have the confidence. And this is where most people are like, well, what if I use this herb and my son, you know, loses his hearing?
Yeah.
So there's this piece of like, how do you gain the confidence? And what I say is you just need to start using them for like little everyday things. And then there has to be a certain point where you trust, and you have to go with that, your gut, your intuition, because as humans, and especially as mothers, we are given this intuition that we've learned to stop trusting, you know, and this can guide us in we can use our intuition for, you know, I'm a deep researcher. I love researching not just herbs, but I love researching financial. Okay, what's going to be my best financial future? So I'll research, and then I'll go, okay, after I've done all this research, what feels right for me? So I think people need to turn into researchers, and then you need to go, okay, how does this feel? And you know what? Our gut will never lead us wrong, ever. So that's a big piece.
It is a big piece. So is there a starting point for, say, when my dad was diagnosed, I thought I was living a healthy lifestyle. I thought because the box of processed foods that I was buying said healthy or natural, I fell for it. I fell for it because I didn't know better. I didn't have that background. I didn't have the education or the schooling that, say, you just automatically had, that the just given way of being raised into natural and herbal type medicine. I didn't have that privilege. It was when I dove into it, I dove head first, and then my feet came right behind me and I was all in and no turning back. But not everybody's going to do that. Not everybody has the time, the desire, or the confidence or the interest.
And the confidence,
yeah. So is there a starting point that you recommend, like maybe a first aid kit, that just like basics to keep on hand? Because this is something that you're not, when we're using herbal medicine, it's in my opinion, you're replacing what we know conventionally for a headache, for a bee sting, for a mosquito bite, for cuts, wounds, bruises, burns, things like that. So is there a starting point?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been going 20 years on my own. And about 10 years ago, I put together, it's literally called the starter kit.
Okay.
Because, you know, people will look through our stuff, and we don't have a huge line, but we have a pretty good line of things that cover a broad range of things. And when people start looking through our information, because we have a 64-page booklet that it helps educate people. But is there going to be a problem with listening? It's okay. Okay. I just wasn't sure if you could hear me.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not on mute. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Great.
Okay, great. Okay.
No, it's great. So basically what I find is over the years, people will look through our stuff and they'll go, oh my gosh, I want everything because I need everything. I have these issues.
Yeah.
And then it's like, no, you do not need everything. And besides, what happens is then you'll get overwhelmed.
Yes.
It's like, okay, now I've got all this and it's just going to sit there because I don't know how to use it. So we put together this starter kit that is a really great place to start. And then also people will put in, you know, can do their own thing and say, well, I do have this issue. Say someone suffers with migraines or constant headaches. Well, first of all, there's a couple of things. You might be dehydrated. That might be the very first thing.
Sure.
You know, there might be some emotional trauma that is typically caused by migraines. That's usually an emotional trauma that your body's trying to protect you with chronic pain before needing even a nerve. Like, you know, so there's that piece of it too. But while you're still working on that piece, there's a plant called feverfew that is really well known. That's how it got its name. It's really good for headaches and migraines. And that's a great thing to have. You don't need to take it. If you have chronic migraines, that's something that's good to take every day and keep in your system. But if you use it for headaches, first of all, hydrate. Second of all, look at what you're eating, and then take a little tincture full of feverfew, and it can really go after a headache very quickly. And that's the nice thing about liquid tinctures, is the uptake is very quick. They go right to the bloodstream. And so a tincture is an alcohol-based extraction of herbs.
So if somebody has a cancer diagnosis, should they be concerned or cautious when something is in an alcohol-based tincture? I hear that a lot.
Yeah, I hear that a lot too. So I would say if you were to, I can't think of anybody who really does it the way that we do it. So when my dad made his tinctures, he didn't add any water or glycerin. So you can tincture a plant and filter the bulk material out, and then put 20% into the bottle, and then fill up the rest with water or glycerin. And that's typical. And so you think you're only getting 20% alcohol, but the problem is you need to take so much more, because so when you have a concentrated tincture, like a standard dose of a tincture we have, say in our cancer protocol, is 25 drops. You only need 25 drops for a dose, because we know you can add it to water yourself. So the amount is so small and the benefits are so big, because you take an alcohol-based tincture, you add it to a little bit of water, and then it goes right to your bloodstream, and it goes to work very quickly. And we use an organic cane alcohol. We used to use grain, but a lot of people didn't even like the energy of grain. But so it's, and the properties are the same, but no, we do have a reduced alcohol, 3 formulas that we've brought out into reduced alcohol, because people use them on their kids and their pets.
But there is benefit to carrying it in alcohol, right?
100%.
Okay.
This, to me, now you shouldn't say, okay, well, if a little bit is fine in a tincture, if I'm battling cancer, a glass of wine is fine too, if I'm battling cancer. No, that the equation there is not comparable.
Right.
So I think when you use it medicinally, and it uptakes the herbs so powerfully into your bloodstream, that's where you need to look at it. But no, it's not going to feed cancer cells, because we all think, oh, cancer, sugar and alcohol feed cancer. Yeah. So no, that would not be something I would worry about on any level.
Okay. So now when worrying about maybe disrupting or disturbing any type of treatment that somebody's doing, how does somebody know if this is something that's going to interfere with their medication, if they're taking an integrative approach and they're receiving chemotherapy, or they're taking some type of medication? Is this something they need to talk to a pharmacist or maybe a master herbalist about?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because what I think should happen is, if you've got a bunch of, I don't even like to call radiation and chemo and all that traditional. I like to just call that modern medicine.
Yes, I agree.
And traditional medicine should be traditional. How do humans take care of themselves? So I would say, if someone is going to go the modern route and they want to integrate the traditional route, I would have a little bit of a team. There needs to be a team kind of a thing. It would be in a perfect world. In a perfect world, you could go into a setting where all of your options are available. You could go in and it's like, what does the person need? Do you need acupuncture? Do you need herbs? Do you maybe need to have a little surgery? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In a perfect world, it would all be like, all of the modalities would come together, and it would be like, what's going to make this person, help this person be well? So I would say, if someone, like say someone is on a prescription drug for whatever, like say they're on a blood thinner. Well, there are some herbs that naturally thin the blood. Like ginkgo biloba will naturally thin your blood. Cayenne pepper has a little bit of natural blood thinning. Turmeric even has a little bit of natural blood thinning. Not a whole lot, but if you're going to do some modern treatments or drugs and some, you want to say your goal is to get off your stuff. I would get a functional medicine doctor, a functional medicine doctor, maybe an herbalist, and let them be your team. And I've actually seen people do this on their own with a lot of deep research and a lot of deep reflection. And you do have to be a researcher. But here's kind of my general rule. If you're on a prescription medication and you want to take a natural herb, take them at separate times so they can absorb into your body differently. I've never known anybody that's died from an herbal medicine, ever. I've in all my years of being alive on this planet, there can be some side effects if you overdo it. Like, for example, chaparral is a wonderful antiviral plant, but it's toxic to the liver at really, really high doses. So, and I'm talking about really, 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 really high doses. You would have to really go out of your way to take a lot of chaparral to make it, but then it's not going to kill you. It's just going to be toxic to your liver.
Yeah.
So, which if your liver gets compromised for too long of a period, of course, we all know that can be life-threatening.
Sure.
So, I think people need to use their common sense. They need to not give away their responsibility. It's common sense to separate your prescription meds from natural things that you do. Just separate them. And most people, I've had many, many people over the years go through cancer treatments, chemo, radiation, etc., and take our cancer protocol, and they just take them at different times. And I've actually seen people thrive through that, like you maybe did with your dad. While he was doing his things, he did some natural things as well.
Yep. We made sure that we took it with enough hours apart so that the liver was never, there was never that competition for the liver enzymes. So with that said, now we've got kind of the basics. What I want to ask you, what I want to get into is you specialize in something very interesting to me, and because cancer is the topic, getting to the root cause of the imbalance is always my goal with my clients that I work with. Now, almost always we're dealing with some type of virus, fungus, bacteria, yeast, HPV, shingles is coming up a lot lately, the herpes virus. So I know you have something pretty effective for these issues that you have. What, can we talk about that?
Yeah. In fact, it's interesting because I think that's how some people find me, is because of this. So I brought up this plant a little bit ago. It's a plant called Lomatium. Most people have never heard of it. It is a Native American plant that only grows in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, and it's never been successfully cultivated. So during the 1917-1918 flu epidemic, what happened is the United States assigned a contract physician to different groups all around the United States to keep track of patients and numbers, and so that they could get a real grip on what was happening with the pandemic of 1918. And there was a contract physician from San Francisco. His name was Dr. E.T. Krebs. And he was assigned to all of the people in his area, which included two groups of Indians by the name of the Washoe Indians. There were two tribes that were living near Carson City, Nevada. And what he found is that they were using this plant Lomatium, and even though they also got the virus, not one person from either one of these tribes died during the epidemic, not even one person. So after the pandemic ended, he took this plant back to his practice in San Francisco, and he started studying it. And he studied it very extensively, and there's papers and things he's written. And he had a son who grew up to become a medical doctor as well, Dr. E.T. Krebs Jr. And he's the Dr. Krebs Jr. is the one my dad worked with. And they studied Lomatium for about 30 years. But what happened is in 1944, there was some extensive, really beautiful work starting to happen with this plant Lomatium because of the antimicrobial properties. And I believe that its most powerful properties are its antiviral properties, even though, like you said, things like, fungus and yeast and some types of bad bacteria. It is very broad spectrum, but I really, from my experience with it, I believe that its most powerful properties are antiviral. But what happened in 1944 is when your penicillin, all of these modern, fancy antibiotics were developed, and nobody wanted to use an old Indian remedy. It was like, oh, who wants to do that? Here's this beautiful modern drug that does it all. And so it really literally fell by the wayside, even though it was starting to gain some really amazing research behind it. So, you know, I was actually lucky enough when I was 16, I took a trip with my dad to San Francisco and I got to meet Dr. Krebs. I didn't think it was a big deal at all.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. But what I believe has kind of come now full circle is this plant Lomatium is starting to really gain some buzz, because too, think about, I believe that most cancers have an underlying viral base to them or fungal base to them. And if you can wipe that piece out while you work on the other things, like the lifestyle things and the stress relief things, and, you know, your diet and your exercise and all that, if you can help your biology wipe that piece out, that's like this huge foundational block that can help your body get well on a biological level. And yeah, to me, that's a foundational piece of our cancer protocol for sure.
So is that something, should people test first to determine if they have some type of virus or bacteria, or is it safe to just consume this anyways to wipe out anything that could potentially be an underlying issue? Is it because it's an herb? Herbs are food and food is medicine. Could that just be something that would be a good idea to incorporate regardless?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. Like I go through our cancer protocol twice a year. So besides that, we have a couple other things. I just do, you know, January and July, and I do that for simple prevention. But this plant Lomatium, I actually take it every day during cold and flu season for prevention. So this has been something I've been doing since I was in my 20s. You know, every cold and flu season, or if I ever get on an airplane, no matter when it is, in the middle of the summer, if I'm going on a trip, I always just take a preventative dose of it, because your body doesn't build an immunity to it. It doesn't destroy any beneficial bacteria. That's the beauty of plants and Mother Nature is
They're smart.
They're so smart, and it doesn't like if you take a prescription antibiotic, oh, okay, now we need to really start paying attention to how do we reestablish our gut flora and build our microbiome back up. But plant medicine doesn't do that. And you can, a lot of times, take things prophylactically, just take them preventatively. And I would say if someone's first learning about this plant, now it does come with, there's a certain percentage of people, when they first use it, will get a full body one-time, pretty intense detox rash. Because if you think about it, I don't know if you read anything about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
So here's something you maybe probably already know too. 95% of the planet, the population, has something that's Epstein-Barr, under the Epstein-Barr virus family.
Yep.
95% of us. So when someone, you know, will find us and say, oh my gosh, I have herpes and I'm so embarrassed. It's like,
we all do.
welcome to the planet of being a human being. Like, you know, so shingles fits under Epstein-Barr, mono fits under Epstein-Barr, herpes fits under. So that's what makes us who we are. We have viruses. We actually have a virome that is part of our microbiome. That's what makes us a human being. It's not only not anything to be embarrassed about, it's something to be aware of and say, okay, well, let's make sure that it stays in balance, because that's partly what keeps us healthy. We all know that stress brings on a shingles outbreak. Shingles gets, you know, but if we can wipe out the majority of the shingles virus that's causing you to have issues, you know, I've seen Lomatium do that easy. To me, that's easy. Someone's like, shingles, easy. Gets on some Lomatium. So we do have a protocol to try and prevent the rash. Most people don't get it. Only about 10% get it. And it is not a pleasant experience, but what I've come to believe is that when someone finally gets the tool, Lomatium, the plant, to eradicate a viral load, your liver can't take how fast the detox is, how fast your body is eradicating this virus. So your skin, as your largest organ, is simply helping you out. And we have developed a protocol to help prevent it, and for most people it does. And also there are things that if you do get the rash, we've got a whole guideline. It's like, do this, do this, do this, you know, and it can be a really emotional detox for some people too, because when you're finally releasing, you know, this thing that's kept you, maybe you have had kind of low grade fatigue, maybe you've had brain fog, but you really, for the most part, you feel good and you can function, but you just don't feel like a vibrant functioning human.
Right.
Then a lot of this finally starts to release out of you. Like for people that get this rash, it can be very emotional, and you have to be willing to go, okay, I'm going to get through this. My body's doing a smart thing. I'm going to relax and rest through it. And I'm going to maybe cry and be okay. But there's a piece that is really important when you're going through a healing.
Yeah. And in my cancer coaching program, the detoxification is a pretty huge portion of it, because we're not just doing the physical work. We're a whole being. So even when we're going through the physical to-dos or the motions of the physical aspect of our being, we're going to cleanse on other realms too. We're going to detox emotionally. Our lifestyle has to detox. The products that we've been accustomed to using, our relationships sometimes need a detox. So it's a pretty intense situation for probably 99% of people that go through it. It hits you, it comes at you from every direction when you lose that and the energy starts to shift. So is there a prep for this? You know, because when I walk people through a detox, I prep them, make sure their energy pathways or their drainage pathways are clear, but this isn't necessarily a detox. So I don't want to confuse anybody listening. This herb is not to detox, it's medicine. It's to kill off anything that shouldn't be there, right? So it's not necessarily a detox. So get out of the mindset that you have to prep to be able to take this, right?
Yeah, it's 100%. Like this is even, I have people still on a regular basis that say, oh, I've been suffering with this problem for so long, and I started researching this herb and I love all your information, but I'm completely scared of the rash and I don't want to do it. I mean, I give this herb to my grandbabies. I gave it to my own kids when they were just a couple months old. It is very, very, very safe. And this is where you have to kind of get out of your own mind sometimes and be willing to expand and grow as a human consciousness. That this is where we need to go. Let's open up our consciousness to what's really possible. And we have to be willing to take a step into what might be the unknown, because for most people, this is an unknown thing. But it doesn't have to be. You can actually, your learning curve can be super fast and it's super fun. You know, you jump into something like this, it is the most fun, empowering thing you will ever do for yourself, because when you get your health in order, everything in your life changes. Your relationships, your money, everything changes when you get this piece. So I would just say, you know, yeah, it is not a detox. I always say it is a one-time detox rash because, you know, it seems to make people feel better that they're detoxing something, they're kicking something out. But we have found that when we support and nourish the liver prior to trying this herb, it really, really helps, because then you're giving your liver some nourishment support. We have a capsule product that we call Liver Love.
Yeah.
And it's got Choncapiedra. It's got some really good herbs in it. Dandelion root, you know, things that help nourish and help the liver be strong. And most people kind of abuse their liver. If you're drinking alcohol, you know, they do, right? And so if you're drinking alcohol, I would say you want to try this herb, stop drinking alcohol for a while, you know, get off the alcohol. Even if it's a healthy 1 glass of wine a night, whatever it is that you're doing, you know, if you want to try this herb, don't do that for a while. Support your liver, nourish your liver, and then go for it. And don't be scared.
For sure. And the power in herbal medicine is not just to heal yourself, but it's to empower yourself too. So we have this empowerment that comes along with taking your own medicine or creating your own medicine or knowing what to do with it and when to do it. But you just have to take that first step and try and incorporate. And this can replace so many of those modern day medicines that we have got into a terrible habit of filling our cabinets with. So the power in herbal medicine is so broad. It's the power in healing yourself, the power in being able to repair and restore your health, to fuel your family, to prevent disease, to help work against it and actually recover from it. So if somebody wants to learn more about herbal medicine and how to check into some of these products that we were talking about, I recommend looking into the starter kit, as well as if you have a cancer diagnosis, definitely dive deep into this herb. And how can they do that? Where can people find you?
Well, so we have a website. It's barlowherbal.com, which is just BARLOWHERBAL. And if you even go to just our contact and ask for a PDF of the catalog I was telling you about, it's a 64-page. We send you a hard copy with the first order, but we can attach it on a PDF. You can read through. This is decades worth of information that's compiled into one beautiful booklet that will educate and empower you. And that's what the first thing I would say that people should do, is just reach out, ask us for this, for this PDF.
Beautiful.
And then read it. It's not a 200-page thing.
Right.
The font is actually pretty big, so it's not like 64 pages of like a really dense print. And there are pictures and anyway. So I would say do that first, and then I think anyone who's interested in that should do some due diligence and just read through that. And then if you have more questions past that, we have a customer service thing, reach out and say, hey, I read through your booklet and I have a question about this. And we have people do that all the time. We have a great team. We're not a call center. Both my sons work with me, and we have a beautiful family business that truly if we can empower you, then we as people, the human collective, we can change the paradigm.
I love it. That's perfect. And we are shifting the paradigm. It's shifting.
Yes.
And people are looking. So I appreciate being able to connect with you and for you to share this with everyone. I'm going to have links to your website in the show notes. And I can't thank you enough. This is some powerful stuff. This is how people take their health back. This is how they become in charge of their treatment, because that is a very bold move to say, no, you know what, I'm in charge. I don't agree. I am going to circle back to you because I am going to explore what feels good and what feels right to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most empowering thing that we can do as a human if we feel like the world is out of control. I think the most important thing that we have as human beings is our health, because we could lose it. We could get one diagnosis and go into the modern medical model, and we could lose everything that we've ever worked for financially and even our own lives. So when we take that piece back, that empowerment piece, it is a beautiful, beautiful way to live. And then you get to spread that into your own family and your own community, because it's really, yeah. I knew I would resonate with you, Stephanie.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much, Jane. I appreciate you.
Well, thank you for letting me share. I think it's
Absolutely.
Why we're all here is to help. We're all here to help each other.
Yep. All right. Have a blessed day, everyone.